Sure, more than happy to do. So if we're looking at the workflow, you have the back office, the mid office and the front office along the cash and liquidity management solutions. So what is important to look at the various stages along this workflow. At the back office, you have the reconciliation process. So what is the reconciliation process? You load data, you transform the data, and then you match the data. And once you match the data, you have exceptions. And when you're looking at exceptions, you can classify the exceptions and route these exceptions to the right stakeholder with the support of machine learning. And then you have, for example, cash sweeping. For cash sweeping, you need real-time data. Real-time data is very important. For example, we received feedback from one client, end of data is not enough. We need to know how much cash do I have now. And there, for example, machine learning can also support. If we are looking at the operational process or operational control, banks are providing the following feedback. So today I have a counterpart, I pay him 1 million, tomorrow the same, and so forth. What is happening if it's suddenly 100 million? So we need anomaly detection, very important. So I talked about the back office. Now we are moving to the mid office. At the mid office, you have very often stress testing. Stress testing generates a lot of data. You mentioned the liquidity workflow, and at the liquidity workflow, you have counterparty stress, customer stress, own financial stress, macroeconomic stress, and then you combine these stresses in order to have stress scenarios. And this helps you to detect anomalies, to detect exceptions. And you can use this data for predictions. Predictions, as we know, is in the front office. So we are looking at, for example, a cash ladder, where you have a cash ladder, Euro, USD, major currencies, or any currency. And the Treasury Department is, for example, very interested in this workflow and in these predictions. So you have a workflow from back to the front office along cash and liquidity. And with artificial intelligence, you can detect anomalies, you can detect exceptions, you can have predictions. So it helps you to identify the pain points. And this is also what we get as a feedback. It's not about, how can I apply artificial intelligence? It is about what is the workflow, and along this workflow, what are the pain points, and how can I solve these pain points via artificial intelligence? Yeah. Yeah, if we are looking at use cases together with regulatory pressure, one use case is, as I mentioned, the AI financial monitor. So what does this financial monitor do? You have these stress scenarios which are talked about by the Basel Committee of Banking Supervision. So the Basel Committee of Banking Supervision is the central bank of the central banks. And they are implementing these making recommendations for stress scenarios. And one of these recommendations, as I mentioned, counterparty stress, customer stress, own financial stress, and then we have other, for example, also local specific stress scenarios. And then you think about, okay, what is my liquidity at the start of the day? What are my time-specific payments and other scenarios? And if you combine them, you get a lot of data, and you can use this data, for example, for anomalies, as mentioned, and predictions. And this is the AI financial monitor I talked about. Another example is digital fingerprints. So what we are doing there, this comes back again to the regulation question you asked. So there's Basel, the Basel Committee for Banking Supervision. There's a paper out, BCBS 239, and it looks at the accuracy of data. You measure and monitor the accuracy of data. What does it mean? It's important to have the highest data quality. And digital fingerprints, they help you in this. How do they do this? they identify missing or incorrect data in the transaction workflow by pattern recognition. And as we know, the finger also has some patterns. Yeah? So this is one example. And another selected use case of the use cases we have is invoice extraction via natural language processing. You have to imagine a broker. Banks are dealing with brokers, and there are tons of invoices coming in from the various brokers in different shapes and formats. And often the reconciliation is done manually. So what we are doing is automating this process. So machine learning can see what is the date on this invoice, what is the currency, what is the amount, and support in this reconciliation process.